Who among us hasn't experienced moments filled with suffering at least once? Perhaps everyone has, at some point, sat silently in a dark room, staring into space, and asked why life is so unfair. Why must I endure so much pain? Suffering comes from losing loved ones, from broken relationships, from unfulfilled dreams, from unsatisfactory work. Suffering seems to always be present, surrounding everyone's life. Yet, if we listen carefully to the Buddhist teachings, we will realize a simple yet profound truth. All suffering will pass. Like a heavy rain, seeming to deluge and obscure the entire sky. But then, when the clouds disperse, the sun returns, the ground dries, and flowers can still bloom. Have you ever thought that without suffering, would we truly understand the value of happiness? Only those who are thirsty truly feel the sweetness of a cool sip of water. Only those who have been lost in darkness truly appreciate the light of dawn. Similarly, suffering is a mirror that helps us cherish every peaceful moment. The Buddha once taught that suffering isn't meant to drown us, but to temper our minds, to help us mature, become stronger, and most importantly, to learn to love more. Imagine a slender flower growing by the roadside. Amidst the scorching sun, amidst the wind and rain, it still stretches itself and blooms. Without challenges, how could that delicate petal become resilient? How could its fragrance spread far and wide? Human life is the same. Every suffering is a downpour, a strong wind, a scorching sun. But because of it, we learn how to stand firm, how to love ourselves and those around us more. In a story that's been told, there was a man who lost everything after a major upheaval. He sat crying under a tree, feeling like life had nothing left for him to hold on to. At that moment, a monk walked by, saw his sorrow, and smiled as he asked, "What causes you such suffering?" The man choked back tears. "I've lost everything. There's nothing left." The monk then picked up a fallen leaf, placed it in the man's hand, and said, "Look, this leaf has also left its branch. But it doesn't complain. It simply lets itself drift gently with the wind, returns to the earth, and becomes nourishment for new sprouts." Human life is the same. Loss is just a part of the law of impermanence. If you can let go, new things can come. Hearing this, the man gradually calmed down. He realized that suffering is just a moment. It comes to test one's heart and then passes, just like that fallen leaf. From that day on, he began to look at life with different eyes, with less resentment, less sorrow, and more gratitude. All suffering will pass, for the very nature of life is impermanence. No joy lasts forever, and no sorrow stretches on endlessly. Change is the rule, and only when we accept this rule do we find peace in our hearts. If you are suffering today, believe that a day will come when you will smile with relief when you look back. The important thing isn't to run away from suffering, but to learn to walk through it with a steadfast heart. So, instead of blaming fate, let's learn to see suffering as a strict but compassionate teacher. Every stumble is a lesson. Every loss is an opportunity to appreciate more. And each time suffering passes, our hearts will grow more resilient. When we understand this, suffering is no longer frightening. It's just like a cloud passing across the vast sky, then dissipating, making way for clear light. Don't you see? Suffering has never stayed in your life forever. It merely passes through and then leaves. And after seemingly insurmountable adversities, we still live, still breathe, still move forward. This is the clearest proof that all suffering will pass. We just need to learn to open our hearts, accept, and trust that after the rain, the sky will clear. Have you ever sat silently watching a leaf fall from a branch and sighed, suddenly wondering why everything in this life must change? Someone who once loved us dearly has now become a stranger. There were days when we were innocently young, and in a flash, we see time has left its marks on our faces. Why does joy fade before we can even grasp it, while sorrow seems to linger forever? It is this change, this impermanence of life, that has become the source of so much suffering that humanity endures. The Buddha taught that all phenomena, whether our bodies, the surrounding environment, or the relationships in life, are not permanent. They are born, exist for a certain period, and then dissolve. Impermanence is not just a lofty philosophy. It manifests daily, hourly in life. Youth fades. Old houses gradually change. Even the river we used to swim in when we were young no longer has the same flowing water today. Try to remember your own childhood. Have you ever returned to your old home, looked at the trees, the dirt road, and suddenly realized everything has changed? Where have the breezes of youth gone? Are the familiar neighbors still there? It is in that moment that we clearly feel impermanence. It makes us regret, but it also teaches us a valuable lesson. Never wait for anything forever, because that does not exist. I want to tell you a small story. In the countryside, there lives an old woman named Tu, now over 70 years old. Every afternoon, she often sits under the mango tree in her yard. Her eyes quietly follow the yellow leaves falling from the branches. One day, her grandson ran out, sat beside her, and asked curiously, "Grandma, why do you keep watching the leaves fall?" Grandma Tu smiled gently, then picked up a freshly fallen yellow leaf and placed it in her grandson's hand. Long ago, Grandma was also like a young leaf on the branch, green and full of vitality. Then months and years passed, and now Grandma is old, like this yellow leaf. At some point, Grandma will also have to leave the branch of life to return to Mother Earth. The leaf doesn't grieve because it understands that it is the natural way. The grandson was silent, his innocent eyes seemingly not fully understanding. But from that day on, the boy began to pay more attention to meals with his grandma. He rarely left food unfinished, rarely got engrossed in play, and forgot to eat with her. In his young heart, he had learned to cherish every moment he had with his grandma. You see, just an image of a falling leaf opens a door for us, leading into the truth of impermanence. When we understand that everything changes, we will no longer blindly cling to what is fragile. We learn to love while we still can. We learn to speak kind words before it's too late, and we learn to let go when it's time to part. Impermanence causes us suffering when we don't accept it. We suffer because we want to keep loved ones by our side forever, want youth to never fade, want wealth and fame to never be lost. But what in this world can truly be held on to? Even this body, which we care for every day, will eventually decay and become ill, and finally return to the earth. When we cling to things that are inherently impermanent, suffering is inevitable. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one is freed from suffering. This teaching is like a lamp illuminating our minds. Impermanence is not meant for us to fear, but to awaken us. When we clearly see impermanence, we will know to cherish the present moment. We'll no longer waste life in resentment, selfishness, or strife. Try to imagine one morning you open your window and see dew glistening on a flower branch. If you know that the dew will only exist for a moment and then vanish when the sun rises, you will look at it more carefully, appreciating its fleeting beauty more. Similarly, we truly learn to love only when we realize that all things are impermanent. It is precisely because we know that tomorrow we may not meet again, that we know to offer each other a smile, a greeting, a warm embrace. Some people say today that impermanence makes life fragile and sad. But looking from another perspective, impermanence is a miracle. Thanks to impermanence, cold winter makes way for warm spring. Thanks to impermanence, today's pain will also pass, so that we still have the opportunity to start anew. Thanks to impermanence, people can grow, change, transform from suffering to happiness. If there were no impermanence, nothing would be renewed and life would forever be stuck in a stagnant, boring state. You may have suffered when a door closed, when someone left, but believe that it is thanks to impermanence that another door can open. One day, you will meet someone else, have another joy, a new opportunity. If there were no change, how would you grow? How would you find a better path for yourself? I remember a Zen master once told a story about a man in distress. Having lost his stable job, he blamed fate, lost sleep and appetite. But thanks to that loss, he had the opportunity to learn about himself, eventually discovered his true passion, and started a new career. If there were no impermanence, he would have remained stuck in his comfort zone, never knowing the true value of his life. Therefore, impermanence is not an enemy. It is a silent teacher, reminding us that everything is passing. So live life to the fullest. Don't wait until you look back to regret that you were too indifferent to your parents, too harsh with your spouse, or too cold with yourself. When we realize the truth of impermanence, the suffering within us lightens. We know that every sorrow will pass, every wound will heal, every rain will stop. Nothing remains forever, not even the greatest difficulties. So why should we despair? Instead of resisting impermanence, let's walk with it like a river flowing to the sea. One who knows how to live in mindfulness is one who knows how to smile at impermanence. They are not afraid when they see another strand of white hair, nor are they sad when they see wrinkles at the corners of their eyes. They understand that it is part of the journey, and in every step, every breath, they cherish the life that is unfolding. My dear friend, impermanence is the root of suffering, but it is also the key to liberation. Just by changing our perspective, we will see that impermanence is not at all frightening, but incredibly precious, because it reminds us to live better, love more, and let go more easily. So from today, if something makes you sad, tell yourself that it too shall pass. If you are happy, cherish it twice as much, because that joy will also pass. That truth might momentarily weigh you down, but if you look deeply, you will find your heart lighten and feel more at peace. Have you ever wondered why in this life the thing that causes us the most suffering is not great losses, but stubbornness, clinging to things that no longer belong to us? There are times when we hold on to a sorrow, an injury, or a grudge for many years. We think that holding on to it is to protect ourselves. But in fact, that very clinging makes us tired and never allows us to find peace. So why is it often difficult for people to let go, when letting go is truly the way out of suffering? The ancients told a story about a monk and a young student. One day, the young man came to ask the master for instruction on the Dharma. The monk received him with a cup of tea. As he poured, the tea filled the cup, but the master continued to pour. The tea overflowed, hot and scalding, causing the student to exclaim in alarm, "Master, the cup is full. You cannot pour any more." The monk smiled and said, "Just like your mind, if it is already full of prejudices, attachments, and cravings, how can it receive more wisdom and peace? To learn the Dharma, you must first let go. You must empty your mind. Only then will there be room for the true teachings to enter." Reflecting on this, our lives are also like that teacup. When we constantly fill it with sorrow, resentment, desires, and worries, what space is left to receive joy and peace? Those who know how to let go are not defeated. It is because they understand that holding on only causes themselves suffering. There are times when pain accumulates to an unbearable degree. It is then that it teaches us how to let go. Let go to lighten the burden. Let go to move forward. Let go to be free. In the Buddha's teachings, letting go does not mean loss, but liberation. Because true loss is not about no longer holding on to external things, but about our minds being bound. A person can possess much wealth, but if their heart is attached, if they are always worried, always uneasy, then they are never truly free. Conversely, there are those who have little, but know how to live simply and let go of desires, and thus live in peace and ease. I want to tell you a very ordinary story. In the countryside, there was an old man named Ba, who made a living raising fish. In his house, he had an old comb that had been with him for many years, used to scoop water for the fish pond. One day, unfortunately, the charm slipped from his hand and shattered into pieces. Old Ba sat there, stunned, deeply regretting it, sighing and complaining all afternoon. His grandson saw this and said, "Grandpa, the jar is broken. Keeping the pieces won't make it whole again." Hearing that innocent remark, old Ba suddenly brightened, laughed, wiped away his tears, and then went to buy a new jar. The story seems trivial, but it contains a profound philosophy. There are things in life that, once shattered, holding on to them only causes us more suffering. There are relationships that, once broken, trying to cling to them won't bring them back to what they were. There are aspirations that, once unfulfilled, agonizing over them only causes more pain. Only when we learn to let go can we truly feel a lightness in our hearts. Try to look back at yourself. How many times have you complained about something lost? How many times have you lain awake, worrying about a relationship that ended? How many times have you tormented yourself over a past mistake? But can you hold on to those things? If a jar is broken, is there any way to put it back together as before? If someone has left, is there any way to keep them forever? If a mistake has passed, is there any way to erase it as if it never happened? The answer to all is no. So why don't we learn from old Ba? Smile, accept, and let go. The Buddha once taught that when we let go, we can then grasp something new. If a hand is tightly clutching a stone, how can there be room to receive a flower? If a heart continues to hold on to sorrow, how can there be room for joy to enter? Letting go does not mean no longer caring, but letting go of attachment. We still love, but without attachment. We still remember, but without suffering. Looking at nature, we will see that letting go is a fundamental law. Trees shed their leaves each season to welcome new buds. Rivers let go of today's water to make way for tomorrow's. The earth lets go of the summer heat to welcome the cool crispness of autumn. If all things did not let go, how could life continue? So why do humans stubbornly cling? Letting go is not always easy, for humans are often accustomed to living in possession. But remember that nothing truly belongs to us. Wealth, fame, beauty, youth will all eventually depart. Only karma, goodness, and inner cultivation follow us throughout life. When we understand this, letting go becomes easier. A Zen master once said, "No one can cause us more suffering than our own minds by clinging." That saying sounds simple, but it is true to the core. We suffer because we cling. We cling to the past, cling to expectations, cling even to things we cannot change. But if we let go, suffering will dissipate like clouds. My dear friend, ask yourself, if today we could let go of one sorrow, would our hearts feel lighter? If today we could forgive someone, would we breathe easier? If today we could overlook one of our own mistakes, would life feel more open? The answer is surely yes. So let's learn to let go, like releasing a yellow leaf into the wind, like setting down a heavy stone from our shoulders. Let go to lighten our burden in life, because, after all suffering will pass, and the path to peace only opens when our hearts are wide enough, empty enough to receive the light. Have you ever wondered what in this life truly makes us happy? Is it having a lot of money, a lot of possessions, or being praised and acclaimed by others? In reality, if we look deeply into our hearts, we will realize that happiness is not found in those distant things, but exists right in the present moment. In every breath, every smile, every second, we get to be truly ourselves and with our loved ones. But the irony is that most of us live without truly living. We constantly wander in the past or worry about the future, forgetting that the only moment we truly have is this present moment. There is a woman named Han. Her story is probably the story of many of us. Han works all day. Her busy job pulls her into endless reports, calls, and plans. When she returns home, instead of talking with her young child, she often picks up her phone, scrolls through social media, replies to work messages, or immerses herself in endless information online. Her little daughter would sit beside her, eyes waiting, but never heard her mother ask or smile with her. One day, While tidying her child's room, she accidentally read a diary entry that shook her heart. "I wish Mom would smile at me more than at her phone." Just one sentence, and tears streamed down her face. She suddenly realized that she had missed too many precious moments with her child, moments that would never return. Do you see yourself somewhere in this story? How many times do we come home, but our minds are still at work? How many times do we sit with loved ones, but our hearts chase after other worries and concerns? We think we are living, but in reality, we are only existing. We are physically present, but mentally absent. And thus, we miss happiness right before our eyes. The Buddha once taught that true happiness is present only when our minds are dwelling in the present. Time, once it has passed, will never return. Yesterday, no matter how beautiful, is already the past. Tomorrow, no matter how much we long for it, has not yet arrived. The only thing we truly have is this moment. But humans often live in forgetfulness. We regret the past, we worry about the future, and then we forget the present. That is why, even with many external conditions, we still feel a lack in our hearts. A Zen master once taught his students with a very simple exercise. He gave the students a cup of water, told them to hold it in their hands, and feel it. At first, the cup of water was very light, but if they held it continuously without letting go, after a while, their arms would ache, trembling. At that point, the students understood that the cup of water itself wasn't heavy. But because they wouldn't put it down to rest, the burden kept growing. Life is the same. If we don't stop, if we don't live fully in the present, then worries and regrets will weigh heavily on our shoulders forever. Only when we know how to put the cup down, how to abide in this moment, do we feel lightness. Practicing mindfulness is the path for us to return to the present. Mindfulness is not something distant, but an awakening in every daily action. When walking, we know we are walking. When breathing in, we know we are breathing in. When eating a meal, we truly savor its taste. We are grateful for all that contributed to that meal. When sitting with loved ones, we put away our phones, let go of worries to truly be fully present for them. These things may seem small, but they are the foundation of a happy life. Do you realize that a smile exchanged with a loved one can also become a priceless gift? An afternoon spent playing with our children, a moment spent drinking tea with our parents, or a moment listening to our spouse confide. All are true happiness. But if we let our minds constantly be drawn to distant matters, we will miss them. Like Han, only when she read her daughter's innocent diary entry did she awaken to the fact that happiness was not in her phone, not in the news out there, but in the waiting eyes of her child right beside her. Buddhist teachings say that every breath is an opportunity to return. When we breathe in and know we are breathing in, we are returning to our body and mind. When we breathe out and know we are breathing out, we are letting go of worries and returning to the present. A peaceful step on the ground can also be a step that brings us back to ourselves. An awakened smile can soothe so much fatigue in our hearts. Happiness, after all, is not far away. It is right here, right now. My dear friend, try to ask yourself, how long has it been since you sat quietly to truly talk with your parents? How long has it been since you spent an afternoon just playing with your children? How long has it been since you smiled, let go of work to truly enjoy a family meal? Those moments, once they pass, will never return. The child who is small today will grow up tomorrow. The parents who are sitting there today will be old and frail tomorrow. It is precisely because of impermanence that every present moment becomes more precious. Make it a habit to stop. When walking, try to take each step very slowly. Feel your feet touch the ground. Feel life in every breath. When drinking a sip of water, be grateful for that clear water nourishing your body. When embracing a loved one, be truly present in that embrace to transmit loving energy. These simple things are the practice of mindfulness, the key to bringing us back to the present. Life is short. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. But if we know how to live fully in every moment, then every day is a happy day. We don't have to wait for something grand. Don't have to dream of distant things. True happiness comes from being deeply present for ourselves and for those we love. Don't you see? All suffering will pass, but happiness doesn't wait for us tomorrow. It is present right now, in every moment. As long as we stop, let go of distractions to truly live, we have entered the door of peace that the Buddha taught. My dear friend, have you ever sat silently on a quiet afternoon and suddenly heard the news that a close acquaintance had left this world and felt your heart heavy? Death is something everyone knows about. But when it comes close, right into the arms of those we love, we suddenly realize how fragile and short life truly is. Don't you sometimes think that you have plenty of time to love, to live fully, to say important things, but then time, like a fleeting breeze through your hands, slips away before you can grasp it? It is in this impermanence that the Buddha taught us to contemplate death, not to instill fear, but to make each day of our lives more cherished, profound, and filled with love. I want to tell you the story of Nam. He had a close friend from school named Kwan. They had promised each other that after settling into their careers, they would travel together, revisiting all the memories of their youth. But busy life carried Nam away with work, with unfinished plans, and the promise of meeting kept being postponed. One day, Nam was horrified to hear that Kwan had died in a traffic accident at the age of 35. Nam couldn't believe his ears. Sometimes he still thought his friend was just busy and couldn't answer the phone. But when he stood before the altar looking at his friend's photo, Nam cried until his tears ran dry, regretting all the delays, all the times he told himself, tomorrow, or when I have free time. But that tomorrow never came. From that day on, Nam began to change. He came home earlier, dedicated dinner time to his wife and children, called his parents more often, and cherished every moment with his loved ones. Do you see yourself in that story? How many times have we inadvertently squandered the present just because we thought we still had tomorrow? But the Buddha taught that no one knows for sure how many tomorrows they will have. Death can come at any time, like a sudden gust of wind blowing out a lamp. Contemplating death is not meant to make us afraid, but to teach us how to live kindly and sincerely in every breath we still have. If today were the last day we lived, Would we choose to resent or forgive? Choose selfishness or love? Choose to be engrossed in our phone, or sit and listen to the laughter of children? The Buddha once reminded his disciples to always contemplate that death can come at any moment. For when we know that life is not long, we will no longer waste time on meaningless arguments, on vague sorrows. We will learn to cherish every handshake, every shared meal, every silent moment together. Try to imagine if every day we woke up, we told ourselves that today might be the last day. We would surely live with all our hearts, without hesitation, without missing out. Some people are afraid when death is mentioned. They consider it bad luck. But in Buddhism, death is just a transition, a step to another shore. It reminds us that everything is impermanent. And when we understand that, instead of fear, we will know how to live more lightly, let go of attachments, and love more generously. Like a flower that blooms only in the morning, we will enjoy its fragrance while it is still there. Instead of waiting until it withers to regret it, try once to look deeply into your heart. Is it true that we often delay expressing our feelings, saying, "I'm sorry," saying, "I love you," or approaching and embracing our aging parents while they are still there, waiting for us to come home? We keep thinking that tomorrow will still be there, but there is no certainty of tomorrow. Contemplating death helps us not forget what is truly important. When you know that every meeting could be the last, you will smile more gently, speak more softly, and love each other more. A Zen master once said, "Death is like a mirror that helps us clearly see how we have lived." If in life we always live with love, sincerity, and gratitude, then when death comes, we will have no regrets. But if we live in selfishness, strife, and anger, then at that moment, remorse will become an unbearable burden. I know that sometimes in life, we get so engrossed that we forget the presence of death. But remember that it is precisely because of death that life becomes precious. It is because there is an ending that every moment of life becomes an irreplaceable opportunity. Like Nam, after the death of his close friend, he learned to cherish every moment with his family. Death teaches us how to live, how to love, how to be grateful. So, my dear friend, don't wait until it's too late to realize the precious things around you. Don't let promises drift away with time. Don't let your loved ones leave with longing in their hearts. A smile, an embrace, a kind word. Live as if today were the last day. If death comes tomorrow, we can still smile because we have lived a life without regret. The message I want to send you is that contemplating death is not to fear, but to learn to live profoundly, to live kindly. Let every day be filled with love, so that when suffering knocks, we can still calmly smile. Because in the cycle of life, all suffering will pass. Only love and awakening remain. Have you ever wondered why life makes us stumble so many times? Some students face very important exams. Some business owners lose money. Some people who love with all their hearts are betrayed. Every failure is like a knife cutting into our faith, making us hurt, discouraged, even wanting to give up. But then, looking around, we see others who have fallen just like us, but they choose to get back up. And from those very falls, they grow, become resilient, and shine. So what makes them different? Perhaps it's not that they fail less, but that they know how to turn failure into strength, into baggage for their journey to success. I want to tell you the story of Lan. Lan was an ordinary woman from a rural area. Wanting to provide a better life for her husband and children, she decided to open a small bun ryu, crab noodle soup, restaurant. At first, she was full of hope, thinking that the hot, flavorful bun ryu would attract customers. But things were not easy. Day after day, the restaurant remained empty. She would wait until the end of the morning, only selling a few bowls. Sometimes, looking at her capital, which was dwindling, she felt utterly discouraged. Many times she thought of closing the shop and finding a job as an employee. However, in her most tired moments, she suddenly thought, if I give up now, all my efforts will amount to nothing. But if I'm a little more patient, who knows? Tomorrow might be different. So she began to learn to change. She researched recipes, asked friends for advice, adjusted the seasoning to suit more palates, chose fresh ingredients, and even learned to provide more attentive service. When customers came, she greeted them warmly and listened to their feedback. If someone praised her, she thanked them. If someone criticized, she immediately improved. Slowly, the bun ryu restaurant's flavor became richer, its aroma spreading through every small alley. A few months later, customers began to flock in, becoming regulars for many in the neighborhood, then spreading to nearby areas. After a few years, from a small, struggling shop, Lan was able to support her entire family and send her children to school properly. Lan's story sounds simple, but it contains a great lesson. Failure is not the end. It is only a comma, signaling us to pause, reflect, and move forward more wisely. There's an old saying, failure is the mother of success. The Buddha also taught that within every adversity lies a seed of wisdom and resilience. If we look deeply, we will see that our falls are opportunities to learn, to diminish our arrogance, and to cultivate patience in our hearts. Think about it. Isn't it true that what makes you strongest today often came from the pain of yesterday? When you fail an exam, you learn to be more diligent. When you are betrayed, you learn to choose and trust the right people. When you fail at work, you learn to be more patient, humble, and creative. If life were always smooth sailing, perhaps we would easily fall asleep in comfort and never truly grow. But it is because of failure that we learn to appreciate success, to understand that happiness does not come from luck, but from the resilience to rise after every fall. There is a beautiful image I want you to visualize. A tiny seed lies in the dark earth, buried under soil, sand, rain, and wind. If the seed refuses to endure the darkness, it will never sprout. But by enduring the pressure, by breaking its shell in adversity, the seed pushes forth to become a plant, then bears flowers and fruit. Human life is the same. Failure is the darkness that nurtures resilience, allowing us to grow strong enough. The Buddha once said that no lotus flower blooms on dry land. It only blooms from the mud. The mud here represents the suffering, the stumbles, the failures in life. If we don't go through them, how can we understand the value of rising up? How can we spread our fragrance in life? So, don't despise failure. Rather, see it as an essential part of the path to growth. My dear friend, with every failure, you may feel small, lonely, and helpless. But remember that all suffering will pass, as long as you don't give up, just like Lan with her bun ryo pot. If she had given up as soon as her restaurant was empty, there would never have been a bustling shop to support her family. Success doesn't come from the first try, but from patience and getting up many times. So the message I want to convey to you today is embrace failure as a teacher, because it teaches us lessons that no classroom can. Believe that every stumble is just a step, and if we are patient enough to keep going, that step will lead us to the peak of success. Don't be afraid to fall. Only be afraid of not daring to get back up. Let failure become a stepping stone for your resilience, so that you can find the strength to overcome all suffering and live a truly meaningful life. Have you ever wondered why, so often, we cannot live peacefully in the present, but our minds constantly dwell on things that have passed? Some remember a past love that ended. Some agonize over a mistake at work. Some sit for hours just regretting a missed opportunity. It seems the past is like a wound that, when touched, throbs with pain, trapping us in a cycle we can't escape. But do you realize that the past has actually gone like a summer afternoon shower? No matter how much we regret it, we can't make it return. Only the lingering earthy scent and a few small puddles slowly drying remain. We often suffer because we cling to what has already gone, forgetting that the more important thing is to live for this moment. I remember the story of a man named Hung. He once had a happy home, a gentle wife, and well-behaved children. A small family, not wealthy, but full of laughter. However, due to marital conflicts, he and his wife decided to divorce. The day she took their child and left, the house suddenly became empty and strange. Hung, once a strong man, became weak, turning to alcohol to drown his sorrow. Evenings after work, he would sit silently with a bottle of wine, his eyes blankly staring into space, as if searching for the image of his old family. Old memories flooded back, from warm family meals, children's laughter, to evenings when the whole family gathered to watch TV. He clung tightly to the past, oblivious to the present slowly fading like withered leaves on the porch. His best friend, seeing this, advised him, "Hung, the past is gone. No amount of suffering can bring it back. If you keep living in alcohol and regret, you will lose your present, not to mention a future even darker." Those words were like a wake-up call. Hung suddenly realized he was destroying himself just by clinging to what no longer existed. Gradually, he decided to quit drinking and focused on finding a new job. It wasn't easy at first, but then he found joy in craftsmanship, rebuilding from small things. Time passed. He regained his composure, his face bearing fewer traces of sorrow. The past was still there, but it no longer held him captive. Hung's story is probably similar to many of ours. Who doesn't have a piece of memory they want to hold on to? Something that could have been different if we had made another choice that day. But the Buddha taught that everything in this world is impermanent. Where there is birth, there is death. Where there is coming together, there is parting. If we let our minds get stuck in the past, it's like imprisoning ourselves in a windowless house, dark and suffocating. The past is something no one can change. It's like a river that has already flowed. No matter how much we regret it, we cannot make the water flow backward. Only when we know how to let it go can we truly see the clear water ahead. Try looking at nature. A prolonged rain soaks our clothes and irritates us. But after the rain, the clouds disperse, the sky clears, the trees become lush green, and the air is fresher. If we keep standing in the rain and complaining, we will remain cold and wet, never seeing the blue sky. Life is the same. What has passed may leave scars, but when we release it, there will be space for new light to flow in. Someone who clings to the past is someone who always carries regret in their heart. Regret for not having kept a loved one. Regret for not having lived fully. Regret for having missed this or that opportunity. But the truth is, regret only weighs down the present. It doesn't help us change the past. A healed wound, if constantly picked at, will only bleed more. Similarly, a distant memory, the more we dwell on it, the more pain it causes our minds. Only when we accept that the past is the past can we begin to live fully in the present. The Buddha once taught that the past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. Only the present is the true moment. We often forget this, constantly dwelling on what has passed or anxiously awaiting the future, not knowing that happiness can only be found in the present moment. If we know how to sit quietly and drink a cup of tea, listen to the birds singing outside the window, gaze at the morning sun, then that moment is happiness. But if our minds are still full of regret about the past, then even the tea will lose its sweetness, and the birdsong won't be enough to bring peace to our hearts. Many people have asked how to let go of the past. The answer isn't actually about trying to forget, but about learning to accept. Forgetting is sometimes just a temporary suppression, while acceptance is true release. When we accept that what is past cannot be changed, we no longer engage in futile struggles. That is when the mind begins to lighten. It's like when we drop a heavy stone from our shoulders. The body naturally feels at ease. From Hung's story, we can draw a lesson that the past, whether beautiful or sad, is just like a cloud. That cloud may obscure the sky for a moment, but then it will drift away. If we keep our eyes fixed on that cloud, we will miss the vast, clear, blue sky behind it. Life is short. If we keep dwelling in memories, the most precious present moments will be missed. And perhaps what causes us suffering is not the memory itself, but our attachment to it. Do you agree that true happiness can only be present when our minds are dwelling in the present? Someone who knows how to let go of the past is not indifferent, but someone who cherishes the present and is open to the future. The past, after all, only remains in memory. But the present is where we can sow the seeds of happiness, love, and peace. If we want to have beautiful memories tomorrow, then right now we must live worthily, live in awareness and love. Therefore, the message for you and for me, for all of us, is to let the past go like a rain shower that has ended. Don't cling to a past rain and forget the clear sky before your eyes. Focus on nurturing the present with love and peace, because only then can we build a bright future. When we can let go of the past, our hearts will feel lighter, our spirits will be freer, and smiles will naturally bloom on our lips. Do you want your tomorrow to be brighter than today? If so, start by being at ease today. And to be at ease, first let the past rest in peace. For all suffering will pass, and we deserve to live fully in this present moment. Have you ever wondered why some nights, when you lie down, your heart feels heavy? Not because of money or food, but because of invisible wounds left by others? Perhaps a harsh word from someone years ago. Perhaps betrayal in a relationship, or even just an unpaid debt. An injustice you had to endure. We hold these wounds in our hearts, thinking we are punishing the other person. But in reality, we are the ones who suffer the most. Not forgiving is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die, while our own soul is slowly gnawed away by hatred. Don't you see this to be true? In the village, there was a gentle woman named Ba Nam who worked hard all year selling food to raise her children. Many years ago, she trusted a neighbor and lent a significant amount of money for business, believing in neighborly kindness and not requiring paperwork. But then, that neighbor not only didn't repay, but flatly denied it, and even avoided her. From then on, Ba Nam harbored resentment. Every time she passed by the neighbor's house and saw them living prosperously, she grew more resentful. Many nights she tossed and turned, unable to sleep, her mind consumed with how to make them pay. The more she hated, the more her health declined. She developed stomach pain and high blood pressure. Her children worried, but didn't know what to do, because she always said, "Mother won't close her eyes in peace, even in death, if I don't get this debt back." Then one day, when her health was severely depleted, Ba Nam's daughter took her to the pagoda to listen to the Dharma. The monk taught about forgiveness, about how hatred never extinguishes hatred. Only love can resolve it. She sat there, her heart suddenly illuminated, as if by someone. The monk said, "Forgiveness is not because the other person deserves it, but because your own heart needs peace." Hearing that, tears streamed down her face. She realized that for many years, she had been tormenting herself just by holding on to a hopeless grudge. The neighbor might still be living carefree, but she was exhausted, both physically and mentally. That day, she decided to let go, no longer thinking about collecting the debt, no longer resentful whenever she saw the other person's face. The miracle was that shortly after, her sleep returned. A smile also came back to her face, which had been etched with many wrinkles. Ba Nam's story is not just hers, but also a mirror for all of us, for who in life hasn't been hurt by others at some point. Sometimes it's a small matter, but we hold on to it, and then the small matter becomes a heavy burden. The Buddha taught that everything in life is impermanent, including the mistakes others make against us. If we stubbornly cling to them, we are only binding ourselves in invisible chains. Forgiveness is the key that opens the door to spiritual freedom. Have you ever noticed that nature always finds a way to forgive humans? The sky can rage with storms, thunder, and lightning, but then it returns to clear blue. This earth can be tilled, cracked, but then new sprouts still grow green and gentle, covering all wounds. The sea can rage with powerful waves, but then it returns to stillness, to reflect the clouds and sky. If nature can forgive the harm humans cause, Why can't we forgive each other so that our own hearts can find peace? Some say forgiveness is weakness, but in fact, forgiveness is strength. Because to hold on to hatred requires no effort, but to let it go requires a great heart and a strong spirit. Forgiveness is not forgetting, but accepting that it happened. But we don't let it control us anymore. When we forgive, we reclaim freedom for our hearts, no longer allowing the past to bind the present. The Buddha once taught, "If you cling to hatred, you will never find peace. Only compassion can extinguish that fire." That teaching reminds us that forgiveness is not excusing the wrongs of others, but giving ourselves an opportunity to be happy. Banam, after letting go, her health improved, her spirits lifted, and her relationship with her children and grandchildren became warmer. This is proof that forgiveness is a gift we first give to ourselves. What about forgiving ourselves? Often, it's not others who cause us suffering, but we ourselves who torment ourselves. We blame ourselves for a wrong decision, a slip of the tongue, a missed opportunity. We imprison ourselves in the dark room of regret, not allowing ourselves to step into the light. But dear friend, who in life doesn't make mistakes sometimes? Failure or mistakes are part of the path to growth. If we cannot forgive ourselves, how can we live lightly and love others? Forgiving yourself doesn't mean condoning mistakes, but looking directly at them, learning lessons, then smiling and moving forward. A Zen master once said, "Humans are like someone carrying a heavy burden across the desert. Forgiveness is putting down that burden to walk more lightly." Try to imagine if we keep carrying dozens of stones of resentment on our shoulders, how tiring our life's journey will be. But if we put down each stone, we will feel our feet suddenly light, our hearts suddenly peaceful, and the dawn light ahead suddenly more brilliant. Therefore, forgiveness is not because others deserve to be forgiven, but because we ourselves need peace. When you forgive, you will realize your soul is wider, your love is greater, and life itself becomes clearer. Because in the end, all suffering will pass. Only a compassionate heart and forgiveness will bring us to the shore of peace. Do you want your tomorrow to be happier than today? If so, start by forgiving. Forgive others, and don't forget to forgive yourself. Because forgiveness is the key that opens the door to freedom and peace. And who knows, when you let go of hatred, a peaceful smile will return to your face, like the sky after a storm, strangely clear. My dear friend, has there ever been a time in your life when, just because of an unintentional word or a minor bump, you let anger erupt, only to then feel empty, tired, and regretful? Do you sometimes wonder why you are so easily controlled by emotions, so that just 1 minute of hot temper can lead to many heavy days? All humans have such moments, and anger is inherently a smoldering fire within. Just a small breeze can make it flare up. But the important thing is not whether we get angry, but whether we know how to control that emotion, so as not to let it burn down ourselves and our loved ones around us. Anger, when viewed from a Buddhist perspective, is one of the great winds that can sweep away the merits and peace we have cultivated. Anger never truly solves problems. It only causes more mental agitation, physical fatigue, and strained relationships. The ancients said, "To maintain 1 minute of peace avoids a lifetime of regret." This saying seems simple, but contains profound wisdom. That 1 minute not only saves us from wrong words or actions, but also preserves joy in our souls, avoiding planting more negative karma for ourselves and others. I want to tell you a small, very ordinary story that will make us reflect. Tuan is a middle-aged man living in a bustling city. His life was already full of pressure. One morning, on his way to work, a young man on a motorbike crashed into him. His bike tilted. He scraped himself, falling onto the road. Anger surged. He was about to rush into an argument, but suddenly remembered what his young daughter once told him after witnessing him lose his temper. "Daddy, please don't get angry anymore. I'm scared." Just that innocent sentence suddenly echoed in his head like an alarm bell. He took a deep breath, then smiled, gently saying, "Be careful." The young man was briefly surprised, then mumbled an apology, while Tuan continued to drive. His heart suddenly felt light, and all that day he felt unusually comfortable. You see, if that morning Tuan had let anger guide him, a fierce argument might have erupted, possibly even leading to a physical altercation. But thanks to 1 minute of mastering his emotions, he maintained peace for himself and for the other person. Forgiving a small mistake does not make us small. On the contrary, it shows the true strength within our spirit. Getting angry is easy, but staying calm is difficult. And precisely because it is difficult, when we succeed, we become free and peaceful. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a passage that teaches that anger is like a small spark. If not extinguished promptly, it will burn down the entire forest of merit we have painstakingly cultivated. A single moment of anger can cause us to lose family affection, lose friends, even lose our career. Some people, in just 1 minute of hot temper, say words that hurt their loved ones, and then live a lifetime of regret. Some people, after just a minor collision, act impulsively, leaving consequences that cannot be undone. Isn't that the truth we witness every day? If we observe nature, we will see that anger is like a dark cloud that suddenly appears on a beautiful sunny day. If we panic and try to chase it away, we only create more chaos. But if we are patient and calmly wait, after a while, the clouds will dissipate on their own, and the sky will clear again. Emotions are the same. They come and go. But if we cling to them and nurture them, they become chains that bind us. If we recognize and let go, they are merely fleeting breezes passing through the soul. So how do we truly master our emotions? The Buddha taught a very simple yet profound method: breathing and contemplation. When anger arises, just stop, take a deep breath, bring your attention to the inhale and exhale, and you will find your mind calm down. Each breath is a return, a small but steady step back to peace. It may seem difficult at first, but with persistence, gradually you will find that anger is no longer as strong as before. Try to imagine if every time we lost our temper, we could remind ourselves to keep 1 minute of peace to avoid a lifetime of regret. How many conflicts could be resolved? How much pain could be avoided? Life is already full of suffering. Why do we add unnecessary burdens to ourselves with pointless anger? My dear friend, mastering emotions does not mean that we never get angry. but that we do not let anger control our actions and words. We can feel it, but we choose not to let it harm us and others. That is true freedom, the strength of one who lives mindfully. When we learn to keep our minds peaceful, we will find our hearts light. Relationships are nurtured, and each day that passes becomes more peaceful. All suffering will pass, including fits of anger. But if we know how to stop, how to breathe, how to choose peace instead of exploding, then that suffering will pass more quickly and leave fewer scars. Remember that 1 minute of peace today can save a lifetime of regret tomorrow. And that is the gift we can give to ourselves and to our loved ones around us. Have you ever wondered what truly matters in the latter half of our lives? Is it luxurious houses, abundant wealth, or high positions of power? Or is it simply an afternoon sitting on the porch, listening to the wind blow through the garden, watching the afternoon sun gently fall on graying hair, feeling at peace in our hearts, no longer needing to strive, no longer needing to compete with anyone? There was a time when we thought happiness lay in achievement, in social standing, in the praise of others. But the more we go through life's ups and downs, the more suffering we experience, the more we realize that serenity and simplicity are truly the greatest blessings one can have in life. I want to tell you a story about Mr. Locke, a man who was once a director in a large company. His entire youth was spent in a frenzy of work, long meetings, and endless business trips. He once thought that only when he had power, abundant wealth, and the respect of others could he be considered successful. And after years of striving, he achieved all those things. But ironically, standing at the peak of his career, he felt an emptiness in his heart. His family often felt distant. His children were not close. His health declined, and he had trouble sleeping at night. He thought he had everything, but in reality, he had lost the most precious thing: peace of mind. When he retired, Mr. Locke decided to move back to his hometown. He built a small house near a garden, woke up early to tend to vegetables, fed fish in the pond at noon, and in the evening, enjoyed a cup of tea while watching the sun set behind the bamboo grove. When friends visited, he would just smile gently and say, "Now I see that true peace is when you no longer have to compete with anyone." He no longer needed lavish parties. He no longer needed flattery. All he needed was a simple meal with his family, a good night's sleep, and a leisurely morning strolling through the garden, listening to the birds sing. That was happiness. Mr. Locke's story reminds us of the Buddha's teachings. Human life is like a river. The closer it flows to its source, the calmer the water, the more peaceful the waves. Youth can be vibrant and competitive. But as we age, we need to learn to let go, to learn to live simply. Living simply is not about lacking. It's about knowing contentment. When the mind is content, the heart is at peace, and life naturally becomes happy. Have you ever seen a flower bloom in the morning sun? It doesn't need to adorn itself, doesn't need to show off, yet it is beautiful in its own natural way. People who live simply are the same. They don't need to follow comparisons, don't need to prove themselves better than anyone else. They just need to abide in the present moment, enjoying every breath, every moment. That is enough. This very simplicity is the source of deep joy. Many of us, having passed the middle of our lives, still cling to regrets and try to hold on to many things. We are afraid to let go of titles, afraid to lose status, afraid to appear less in the eyes of others. But we forget that everything is impermanent. A position today might belong to someone else tomorrow. Wealth today might be completely taken away by an illness. Only a peaceful mind and a calm heart are things no one can steal. And to achieve that, we just need to gently release some of the striving. Accept simplicity to make our lives more serene. I remember once a Zen master said, "When we are young, we chase after fame and fortune. When we are old, we chase after health. But if from the very beginning we knew how to live simply, knew how to love, knew how to cherish the present, then our whole lives would already be peaceful." Those words truly touch the heart. Because indeed, the older we get, the more we understand that money cannot buy peaceful sleep, status cannot preserve health, and competition only makes us more tired. Try to imagine if every day we could eat a delicious meal, talk with loved ones, take a leisurely stroll around the neighborhood, watching the blue sky and white clouds. That would already be priceless happiness. We often search for happiness in distant places, but it turns out to be in the simplest things. In the latter half of life, living calmly, living simply is how we heal ourselves. Because the wounds of youth, the struggles, the suffering, can only be soothed by the tranquility of the soul. When we know how to let go, we truly lift ourselves up. When we live simply, we clearly see the true value of life. My dear friend, all suffering will pass. But once you have passed the middle of your life, remind yourself that happiness is not in external achievements, but in inner peace. Live simply, choose serenity. Simplicity is happiness, and the older we get, the more we should let go. Because in the end, what we carry with us is not wealth, not status, but the peace of mind and the love we have sown in life. Have you ever tried to pause amidst life's hurried pace and ask yourself a profound question? If I woke up tomorrow with only what I'm grateful for today, what would I have left? Perhaps that question makes us startle, because so often we only complain about what's lacking, about losses, about suffering, forgetting that around us countless blessings and kindnesses still exist. Sometimes we have health, but complain about a demanding job. Sometimes we have a home, but wish for a mansion. Sometimes our parents are still with us, but we take them for granted, assuming it's natural. Then one day, when they are no longer there, we realize that those seemingly ordinary things were priceless treasures that life had bestowed upon us. In the teachings of the Buddha, gratitude is a great practice, the foundation of morality, and also the source of happiness. A grateful person will always look at life with gentle eyes, without resentment, without sorrow. Conversely, an ungrateful person will always feel lacking, unfairly treated, always discontent and suffering. The Buddha taught that a grateful person is a happy person. This teaching is not just a philosophy, but also a life experience that each of us can realize every day. I remember a small story about a boy named Min. Min was born into a poor family in a rural area. Every day, he walked to school on a dirt road, wearing worn-out sandals. When it rained, his sandals were slippery. When it was sunny, they were hot and uncomfortable. Many times, when a strap broke, Min had to tie it back together with a string. His classmates sometimes teased him, sometimes pitied him, but Min silently endured because he knew his parents worked too hard. One day, a classmate, seeing his situation, gave Min a new pair of sandals. The sandals weren't expensive, but for Min, it was a great gift. Receiving the sandals, Min was so moved, he cried. He bowed to his teachers, his friends, and said in a trembling voice, "I will study very hard so as not to disappoint my teachers and friends who have been kind to me." Thanks to that gratitude, Min always strived and later became a successful person. That story, though seemingly simple, contains a precious seed. Gratitude made the boy's heart shine, turning difficulties from burdens into motivation to rise. Happiness does not originate from how much wealth we have, but begins with an attitude of appreciating and being thankful for what we have. The new pair of sandals for Min was not just a material object, but a symbol of love, of faith. A grateful person will find happiness even in the smallest things. In modern life, we are often swept away by the currents of work, money, and fame, forgetting to pause and be grateful. We forget that every meal served on the table is the sweat of many farmers, the effort of laborers at the market, the diligent hands of family members. We forget that every breath we take is thanks to green trees, to nature, to all things silently contributing. We forget that there was a mother who stayed up all night caring for us when we were infants. There was a father who endured hardships to send us to school. Yet, as we grow up, we treat all of this as natural, as if it must be ours. Only when we lose it do our hearts ache with regret. The Buddha taught about 4 great kindnesses that humans must remember. The kindness of parents for giving birth, the kindness of teachers for instructing, the kindness of nation and society, and the kindness of the Triple Gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Anyone who deeply understands these 4 kindnesses will know how to live humbly, how to appreciate, how to give. Conversely, anyone who is ungrateful will always have a discontented mind, seeing only lack everywhere, and thus will suffer more and more as they live. In fact, being grateful does not make us poorer. On the contrary, it enriches our souls. A sincere thank you, a grateful bow, an appreciative glance are enough to warm people's hearts and open our own. Try to imagine, one morning you wake up, smile, and silently say, "I am grateful that I have a new day to live." When eating a meal, you put your hands together and think, "I am grateful for having food to nourish this body." When going to work, you think, "I am grateful for having a job to sustain my life." When you see loved ones, you quietly tell yourself, "I am grateful for having people to love and care for." Just like that, you will naturally feel your mind much lighter. Happiness is not far away. It is right in the moment when we know how to appreciate and be grateful. Some people say that gratitude is like fertile ground. On that ground, if we sow seeds of love and sharing, they will sprout and bear the fruit of happiness. If we are ungrateful, our hearts will be barren, and nothing will flourish. When we express gratitude, it's not just others who receive. We ourselves are also healed, because every word of thanks is a drop of water that refreshes our soul. In the scriptures, The Buddha once praised the merits of children who honor their parents. He taught that the kindness of parents is like the sky and the sea. Even if one carries their father on one shoulder and mother on the other, walking for 1,000 eons, one could not repay it all. Therefore, every time we offer a cup of water, cook a meal, or care for our aging parents, we are cultivating great blessings. And the important thing is that when we live with gratitude, we will complain less about life. Instead of asking, "Why am I suffering so much?" we will learn to say, "Thank you, because through hardship I have grown." Instead of complaining, "Why am I not like that person?" we will learn to say, "Thank you, because I still have something to live for, to love." A student once asked his teacher, "How can I be happier?" The teacher smiled and said, "Every day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. Just maintain this for a while, and you will find happiness coming to you." The student did so. At first, he only listed a few simple things, like, "I am grateful that today is sunny. I am grateful for a delicious meal. I am grateful that friends helped me." Gradually, he realized that life was filled with things to be grateful for, from breath, smiles, glances, even to stumbles and failures. Because without stumbles, how would we know the value of getting back up? Without rainy days, how would we appreciate sunny days? Practicing gratitude is also practicing mindfulness. When we are grateful, we return to the present, cherishing every moment. We no longer live in resentment of the past or anxiety about the future. We learn to look at life with gentle eyes. When we are grateful, we naturally want to give more, because we feel we have received so much. A person grateful to their parents will care for them in old age. A person grateful to society will live virtuously and contribute to the community's benefit. A person grateful to the triple gem will diligently practice, bringing benefit to themselves and others. Do you realize that when our hearts are full of gratitude, we will no longer feel lonely? Because we know we are always supported. Parents support us with love. Teachers support us with knowledge. Life supports us with countless causes and conditions. Even a falling leaf, a fleeting breeze, reminds us to cherish life. Gratitude is like a bridge connecting us to all things, making us no longer feel isolated in life. There is something special. The older people get, the more they tend to grasp the value of gratitude. Because after experiencing many ups and downs, we understand that fame and fortune will eventually fade. Only kindness and affection remain. When we look back at our lives, the happiest memories are often not when we had the most money, but when we were loved, shared, and lived in gratitude. In truth, gratitude is not just words, but a way of life. Gratitude means appreciation, love, and dedication. So, my friend, every day, take a few minutes to say thank you. Thank your parents, even if you sometimes don't get to say it directly. Just an act of care is enough. Thank your spouse who has journeyed with you. Thank your children, because thanks to them, you learn compassion. Thank even those who have hurt you, because thanks to them, you learn forgiveness. Thank yourself, because despite all the difficulties, you have bravely continued to live. When our hearts are filled with gratitude, all suffering will be lighter. Because gratitude is like sunlight dispelling darkness. A grateful person does not easily fall into despair because they always see that life still has much to support them. Therefore, if you are suffering, try returning to the practice of gratitude. Write it down, say it, live with it. Then you will see that happiness has never left you. It is just waiting for you to open your heart to receive it. Gratitude is the key that opens the heart. It turns an ordinary day into a special day, transforms a simple meal into a feast of happiness, changes a small house into a loving home. A grateful person is the richest person because they have the ability to find joy in every breath, every moment. So the message we take from this section is to live with gratitude, for it is the source of happiness. Be grateful to your parents for giving birth, grateful to your teachers for educating, grateful to life for giving you so many opportunities to grow, and be grateful to yourself for bravely overcoming all challenges. A grateful person is a happy person. And when we live with gratitude, we not only beautify our own lives, but also warm the hearts of those around us. My dear friend, has there ever been a gloomy day when just a smile or a hug warmed your heart again? Have you ever felt lost in life, and suddenly a hand reached out to support you, bringing tears to your eyes? All of us humans must experience suffering and worries in life, but no one can complete a long journey solely on their own feet. We need care, we need help, and we need sharing. It is these seemingly small things that become immense resources, helping us overcome suffering and giving us faith to continue moving forward. And precisely for this reason, the Buddha taught that even a very small act of kindness can bring light to an entire dark day. I remember the story of Mrs. Hoa, a woman who sold budget-friendly rice dishes at a small street corner. Her restaurant wasn't fancy, just a few old wooden tables and some plastic chairs. But it was always warm and welcoming. One day, a poor motorbike taxi driver stopped by to eat. He rummaged through his pockets, only finding a few loose coins, not enough to pay for a full meal. Seeing this, Mrs. Hoa said nothing, just smiled, and then quietly added an extra piece of fish, some vegetables, and a spoonful of hot soup for him. The motorbike taxi driver welled up, his eyes red with emotion. He knew that the meal was not just food, but a gesture of immense kindness and love that Mrs. Hoa offered him. Later, that story became widely known. People sympathized with Mrs. Hoa. They sought out her restaurant and supported it more. No one expected that a small act of kindness would open up so much joy, so many blessings. The Buddha once taught that you reap what you sow. A smile, a word of encouragement, a gesture of concern may seem small, but they are the good seeds we are planting in life. When we give joy, we are also quietly creating a blessing for ourselves. Because good energy is never lost. It spreads, it returns, and it makes our hearts warmer in life. Sometimes we are too caught up in worries and struggles, forgetting that a small act of kindness can bring great happiness. A glass of water offered to another, a kind word for someone lonely, a little sharing with the poor. These things seem ordinary, but have an incredibly powerful healing effect. Have you noticed that when we care for and help others, we ourselves are the first to receive something in return? When we see an elderly person struggling to cross the street, we offer a hand to guide them. In that moment, our hearts suddenly light up. When we comfort someone who is crying, we feel a surge of affection and warmth in our hearts. Giving does not diminish us. Instead, it enriches us. Giving is how we connect with life, how we feel less alone. Someone once asked, "Why do I help others? But sometimes they are not grateful?" But dear friend, we give not to demand repayment. We give because it is how we beautify life and how we nourish our own souls. The Buddha taught, "Do good deeds as if throwing a flower into the wind, not hoping where it will fly, only knowing that its fragrance will spread everywhere." If we expect life to reciprocate, our hearts will easily become resentful. But if we give with a pure heart, the act of giving itself is already the reward. One day, you might find yourself in someone else's suffering. And then, you will deeply feel that an act of concern, a moment of sharing, can save a desperate heart. For example, some people are about to give up everything, but thanks to a word of encouragement, a hug, they find the faith to live on. You cannot know how much a small act of yours can change someone's destiny. That is the miraculous karmic connection that the Buddha once taught. In life, let us practice opening our hearts to care more. Caring is not just about giving material things, but also about listening, being present, and accompanying others. When someone is sad, just having someone sit next to them and listen without judgment is enough for them to feel heard and supported. When someone is tired, just a sincere question is enough to warm their heart. Don't think that to help, you must have a lot of money. Sometimes our sincerity and compassion are the most precious gifts. Try to imagine a neighborhood where everyone cares for each other, shares with each other. How peaceful that place would surely be. Conversely, if everyone lives closed off and indifferent, life will become incredibly dull. The Buddha once taught that humans are interdependent, meaning we exist by relying on each other. No one can live alone. No one can be happy when everyone around them is suffering. Therefore, caring and sharing are not just things we do for others, but also things we do for ourselves, because our happiness is linked to the happiness of the community. When we help others, we are also helping ourselves overcome suffering. For when we see others suffer, our hearts also feel heavy. When we share, we learn to let go of selfishness. When we care, we realize that this life is much more worth living. And then the sufferings we once thought were too great suddenly shrink. Because we no longer just think of ourselves, we have opened our hearts to embrace the pain of others too. And that very act strengthens our hearts. A seed of kindness sown today can sprout and provide shade for many in the future. The story of Mrs. Hoa giving extra food to the poor motorbike taxi driver is clear proof. She never imagined that her small act would spread everywhere, touching many people and leading them to support her. She herself never expected that from her selfless kindness. She would receive so much love. Karma is always fair and wondrous, like that, my friend. Life is not without suffering. But if we know how to care and share, that suffering will be halved. A small act of kindness can brighten a dark day, not only for others, but also for ourselves. So instead of just thinking about yourself, try to open your heart. Try to give. And you will find life becomes much gentler. The message we draw here is, live with care. Practice helping. Learn to share. Don't wait until you have a lot of money to do good deeds, because a small act of kindness, done with a full heart, is enough to bring great joy. Like one candle lighting another, its light does not diminish, but spreads eternally. Those who know how to care and share will never be lonely, because they are living in the embrace of love and compassion. And that is the path that the Buddha taught, the path of compassion, of joy and equanimity, of endless blessings. Have you ever wondered why some people are born with abundant blessings, while others, from the moment they open their eyes, must face scarcity, illness, or suffering? Is it all preordained by fate, leaving us only to endure? Or is there, amidst these seemingly unfair adversities, still a path for us to walk, to overcome, and to rise up with our own feet, with our own resilience and spirit? Life is inherently unfair, but the Buddha taught that within that injustice lies a precious opportunity for us to train ourselves, to prove our own tenacity. That is the lesson of accepting destiny, but not surrendering to it. Instead, knowing how to transcend all limitations to write a beautiful story for our own lives. I want to tell you about a man named Phat. He was once a strong, vibrant construction worker, but then an accident struck unexpectedly. Due to a moment of carelessness, he lost an arm. In that instant, he felt as if his entire world had collapsed. He cried, he blamed, he wanted to give up everything. But then, instead of dwelling in suffering, he decided to embark on a new path. He began to learn to draw with only his remaining hand. In the beginning, the pen fell from his hand countless times. The paper was smudged with sweat and tears. Yet, little by little, the initial stiff lines transformed into vibrant paintings. Phat not only became an artist, but also an inspiration for many people, helping them see that loss is not an end, but merely a turning point leading to a new journey. Phat's story reminds us of the Buddha's teachings. Humans cannot choose where they are born, but we can choose how we live. A poor background is not a chain binding the future. A physically impaired body cannot prevent a shining spirit. The most important thing is our attitude towards fate. If we choose to accept with resentment, suffering will deepen. But if we choose to accept with a spirit of learning and overcoming, that unfair destiny will become the motivation that helps us grow. Have you ever thought that the strongest seeds sprout from dry, rocky soil, not from fertile ground? Similarly, only those who have experienced suffering and loss possess the unwavering strength to rise. Like a pine tree growing on a cliff, the stronger the wind and storm, the deeper its roots grip the earth. So, adversity is merely a challenge for us to learn how to stand firm and reach for the vast sky. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught that conquering 1,000 warriors is not as great as conquering oneself. Sometimes, the biggest enemy in life is not external adversity, but the despair within our own hearts. When we believe we are useless, that life has closed its doors to us, we have imprisoned ourselves in a prison of suffering. But when we believe that no matter how harsh fate may be, we still have the right to continue writing our life story, then true freedom opens up. If you look deeper, you will see that suffering and injustice are not random. They are the results of karmic connections, a continuation of the past. Perhaps we cannot choose the karma we have sown, but we can choose how to create new karma right in the present. Every good deed, every effort to rise, every clear thought is a seed we sow for a different future. Today's destiny is the result of what has passed, but the future will be created by us today. Try to remember, how many times in your life have you wanted to give up just because you thought you couldn't overcome something? Then, after a little more perseverance, you saw a new door open. Just like climbing a mountain, the steep, rocky path tires your feet. You want to sit down and rest forever. But if you take just one more step, you will see the mountaintop appear. The clear blue sky stretches out before your eyes. Suffering is the same. If you are patient and steadfast, you will realize that all challenges will pass, leaving you with a stronger spirit. Fat's story may just be one example, but in this world, countless people have transformed adversity into strength. Some who are blind become brilliant musicians. Some who cannot walk inspire millions with their extraordinary resilience. They do not complain, do not give up, but accept their fate with a peaceful mind, and then transcend their own limits. This teaches us a simple yet profound truth. Fate may place us in darkness, but no one can extinguish the light in our souls if we don't allow it. Remember that every day you breathe, every morning you wake up, is a precious gift. Instead of complaining about what's lost, be grateful for what remains, and from that gratitude, turn it into motivation for you to keep going. So what will you choose? Will you sit still and complain that life is unfair? Or will you stand up, face destiny, and write a new chapter of your life? Don't be afraid, for the Buddha once taught that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. This means that in every step, every effort to overcome, you have already touched happiness. The message I want to send you is to accept your fate with a peaceful heart, but never let fate decide everything. You may be poor, you may have impairments, you may stumble, but your worth is not in those things. True worth lies in your resilience, in your attitude towards life, in the faith you have in yourself. And as long as you believe, you will find yourself stronger than ever. Remember, this life, though short, is long enough for you to write a story worth cherishing. Don't let any limits bind you. All suffering will pass. And after all, you are the one who writes the final page of your life with the light of faith and steadfastness. My dear friend, have you ever sat alone in a quiet room, looking out the window, and felt an emptiness creeping into your heart? Have you ever found yourself in a crowd, yet still felt lost, as if no one understood you? Loneliness is a suffering that almost all of us have experienced to some degree. Some see it as a burden. Some fear it so much that they try every way to fill it. With work, with superficial relationships, with noise and distractions. But have you ever tried to ask yourself if loneliness is just a sorrow, or if it also hides a gift that few recognize? In the teachings of the Buddha, all emotions, all states of mind, have two sides. Loneliness, if viewed with fearful eyes, becomes a deep abyss that drains energy. But if viewed with awakened eyes, loneliness is a door opening to another world, where we can return to ourselves, facing the deepest parts of our souls. People often flee loneliness, but it is precisely in its quietude that we find a healing power that no other place can provide. I remember the story of Miss Mai, a single woman in her middle age. For many years, she lived in a small house in the suburbs with no husband, no children, and not many close friends. There were times when she saw happy families, and tears would stream down her face from the feeling that she was like a lost leaf. She sought out parties, social conversations, but when she returned to her empty room, the loneliness would envelop her even more intensely. One night, sitting lost in thought on her porch, she suddenly heard the wind blowing through the trees and realized how long it had been since she truly listened to the voice of nature, as well as the voice of her own heart. From then on, Ms. Mai began a new journey. She practiced meditation every morning, breathing deeply and observing the flow of her thoughts. She began to write a diary, not to complain to anyone, but to be honest with herself. On each page, she wrote down her sorrows, joys, worries, and small dreams. Gradually, those pages became silent confidants. In addition, she planted flower pots in her yard, tending to each sprout as if caring for her own soul. And then something miraculous happened. She realized that loneliness was no longer frightening. Instead of feeling empty, she began to feel her heart filled with peace. Ms. Mai's story teaches us a valuable lesson. Loneliness does not necessarily have to be suffering. It can be a gift that gives us an opportunity to reflect, understand ourselves, and learn to love ourselves. Just like a calm lake, only when still can it reflect the clear blue sky. Our souls are the same. Only in stillness is there enough space for the seeds of peace to blossom. The Buddha taught that all causes of suffering come from our minds, and liberation also originates from our minds. When lonely, if we try to hide or escape, we will only suffer more. But when we face it and smile at it, seeing it as an essential part of the human condition, then loneliness becomes a teacher, showing us how to turn inward. The scriptures record that one who knows how to live alone is one who has the greatest freedom. Living alone here does not mean shunning the world, but knowing how to abide within one's own inner self, not being carried away by external noise. If you pay attention, you will see that nature always whispers lessons about loneliness to us. A flower blooming in a vast field, seemingly solitary, yet it still emits its fragrance to the world. A lone star in the night sky, seemingly lost, yet it helps make the sky more mystical. Similarly, a person who knows how to be at peace in loneliness will become a gentle light for those who are adrift in darkness. Try to ask yourself, when was the last time you spent an afternoon just sitting quietly with yourself? No social media, no phone, no work, just you and your breath. At that time, you will find that the worries that seemed so big are just like clouds passing across the sky. You will hear your heart's voice more clearly, will recognize your true dreams, and most importantly, you will learn to cherish every present moment. In Buddhist practice, many Zen masters emphasize that stillness is not emptiness, but fertile ground for the mind to blossom. Loneliness is similar. It is not a sign that you are lacking something, but an opportunity for you to fill yourself from within. Just like a candle, when it stands alone in the dark, it shines most clearly. My dear friend, remember that no one in this life completely avoids loneliness. But instead of seeing it as an enemy, see it as a friend. That friend sometimes makes us shed tears, but it is also the one who helps us find strength and growth. When you can smile in loneliness, then when you step out into life, you will shine even brighter. Because at that point, you are no longer afraid of loss or dependent on anyone else to find happiness. The message here is simple. Loneliness is not an empty space for complaining, but a quiet space for turning inward. In that quiet space, you will find that all suffering will pass, and what remains is a serene, steadfast soul with enough love to embrace everything in life. Have you ever wondered what makes people, despite enduring so much suffering, still able to stand up, smile, and continue on their life's path? Is it perhaps because we gradually realize a simple yet profound truth? All suffering will pass. No pain lasts forever. And no darkness is strong enough to permanently obscure the light. The important thing is not how we avoid suffering, but how we learn to walk through it, understand it, and then let it go to live peacefully in happiness. In that long and challenging journey, the Buddha taught us the secret. Live in mindfulness. Know how to let go. Be grateful. And cultivate love. Try to imagine, sometimes you sit alone in a quiet room, and memories of days gone by flood back. There's joy. There's sorrow. There's even regret and loss. You feel your heart sink as if life were nothing but suffering. But then one morning, as the sunlight streams through the window, as birds sing loudly on the branches, you suddenly realize that everything is not as heavy as it was yesterday. It turns out that even the emotion of suffering follows the law of impermanence. It comes and then it goes, leaving only the awakening and the experience that you have absorbed. It is in this change that you learn to smile at life. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught that all phenomena are impermanent. Suffering is just like fleeting winds passing across the sky of consciousness. One who knows how to let go will be like a kite lifted by the wind, no longer entangled. One who clings to suffering will be like a boat sinking under the waves. The more they struggle, the more exhausted they become. Therefore, the final lesson we need to engrave in our hearts is to let go. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibility or turning away from life, but letting go of attachment, letting go of resentment, letting go of useless cravings that weigh down our hearts. There is a story about a young monk on a pilgrimage passing a large river. On the bank, there was a woman who needed to be carried across, but could not cross the swift current herself. The young monk carried her across the river and gently set her down on the other bank. However, throughout the rest of their journey, the monk kept agonizing, feeling uneasy because he believed he had violated the precepts by touching a woman's body. When his mental state became unbearable, the young monk confided in the master accompanying him. The master smiled and said, "I put that woman down on the riverbank long ago, but why are you still carrying her on your shoulders?" Upon hearing this, the young monk suddenly awakened, realizing he was binding himself with unnecessary attachment. This is proof that suffering often does not come from external circumstances, but from our own clinging and unwillingness to let go. In everyday life, how many times are we like that young monk? We carry too many burdens on our shoulders. The burden of the past, of hurt, of unintentional words from others, or even of unfulfilled expectations. It is these things that make us tired, not life itself, which is inherently suffering. If we can put them down, we will feel a lightness in our hearts. When our hearts are light, we can smile and walk on. There was a woman named Huang who, after a broken marriage, fell into depression, feeling that her life had lost all meaning. Every night she cried. Every morning she just wanted to lie still in the dark. However, one day, accidentally hearing a Dharma talk about letting go, she began to practice mindful breathing and to write down things she was grateful for each day. At first, they were very small things: grateful for a hot meal, grateful for healthy legs, grateful for the sunlight. Gradually, Huang felt her mind change. From only seeing suffering, she realized that life still had many things worth living for. After a few years, she became a meditation instructor for a group of young people, sharing her experience of overcoming suffering. From someone who seemed to have collapsed, she stepped into the light through her own awakening and letting go. The lesson from Huang's story reminds us that the secret to overcoming suffering lies not in changing external circumstances, but in changing our inner perception. Mindfulness helps us return to the present, no longer dragged back by the past or haunted by fear of the future. Letting go helps us stop binding ourselves to what has passed. Gratitude helps us recognize the small but precious things that are present. And love helps us connect and share so that we never feel alone on life's journey. Happiness, after all, is not a destination, but the ability to dwell peacefully in every present moment. Happiness does not come from how much wealth or success we have, but from our ability to let go of how many troubles are in our hearts. Just like a person walking through a dense forest, only when they put down some of their luggage can they walk lightly and enjoy the beautiful scenery around them. And my dear, even if today you are facing sufferings that seem insurmountable, remember that all will eventually pass, like clouds dissipating after the rain. You are not alone. There are those who have gone before and overcome. There is the light of the Buddha's teachings guiding the way, and there is also love from those around you. Most importantly, within yourself lies a hidden source of strength. As long as you believe and awaken it, you will find yourself able to walk more steadily than ever. All suffering will pass. That is not just a comforting phrase, but a truth of life. When you accept it, you will find peace blossoming in your soul. When you let go, you will find happiness manifested. When you live in mindfulness, you will find every moment to be a miracle. And when you are grateful and loving, you will realize that this life, no matter how many ups and downs, is always worth smiling at, walking through, and living to the fullest. Do you agree that in every storm, the sun still waits beyond the clouds to shine? Believe that peace and happiness also always await you ahead. As long as you are patient enough, steadfast enough, and compassionate enough with yourself, you will find that happiness is not far away. Not far away.